But the latest development has been the most interesting one and the funniest one by far. And it's the fire at the illegal migrant camp in Helsinki. Uh, these migrants and their left wing horse were saying that somebody tried to burn their tent down, that some evil nationalist creeped up to their camp in the early morning of last Friday and poured some flammable liquid on their tent and then set it on fire. And then this guy, whose only description is that he was dressed in dark clothes, drove away with his bicycle. And of course, they made a huge scene about this, like a huge fuss. You can imagine, like it was like Holocaust times Holodomor times the Rwandan genocide. So it was a big deal for them. Then some photos started to surface. And of course, the setting sounds pretty bizarre too. Like, setting the migrant tent on fire seems like an idea you would get while you're drunk, maybe in the night between Friday and Saturday. Not something you'd think of very early on Friday morning. And it would take a whole lot of cuts and skills to creep up to this full camp that has tens of people possibly in it, and the tent itself had over 10 people in it, without anybody noticing you, without anybody paying any attention to what you're doing, without anybody like asking, hey, what are you pouring on our tent? Like, that seems pretty incredible to me. And then that after all this happens, that all the description these guys get from the assailant is that he was wearing dark clothes. And that he went away with his bicycle. And like nobody tried to run after him to see what he looks like. Nothing. And the photos I mentioned, they were very interesting. Because they showed a much more likelier cause for the fire. Because in the very same place where the fire took place, these migrants had a grill. They were barbecuing inside the tent, and they weren't really following the manual of the barbecue. The grill manual says that you have to keep it at least 3 feet away from any surface that can catch fire. And these guys were holding the grill right next to, like, touching this top of the tent, like synthetic fiber top that's very flammable. And earlier photos had also surfaced about these guys, for example, drying synthetic fiber jackets on an open grill. Things like that. And these guys had also poured a flammable fluid like this fluid you use to get the grill started into a grill that's already on fire. So it was basically a miracle that the camp hadn't burned down earlier. By the way, these guys were handling fire in there. So when the photo started surfacing and people started saying, okay, so there was a fire and it happened in the very same place in which these guys have this barbecue with this open fire right next to it with a kettle on it. So maybe this was the cause for the fire. Then these anti-racists, they suddenly started to get pretty quiet about it. And the Helsinki police, which is the most like green-red police force in Finland, they said they are investigating this as an arson or as a vandalism. It's pretty difficult to translate these Finnish terms. And for some reason, they haven't released any surveillance camera tapes. Like, this is a very public place in the very center of Helsinki. There must be cameras everywhere. Not just city cameras, but cameras by private property owners. So it's pretty much inevitable that this guy should be seen on at least some tape. But the cops haven't published anything. And if there was a tape on which this guy could be seen, they would have published it. I tried to ask Helsinki police force that how is this investigation going on? Has anything new turned out? And that is it possible that somebody might have just thrown a gas grill at this tent? And I sent this photo of the gas grill in the same place where the fire took place to the police force. They didn't respond to me. So this is pretty clear what's going on. And still the mainstream media only reported that there is a suspected arson in the migrant camp, but they haven't said anything about the photos of the grill. Anything. And I'm pretty sure how things went down in there. These migrants have been playing around with the grill and haven't been paying attention to the safety manual as they hadn't before. And then they managed to get the top on fire. These left-wing whores rush in and they say, what's going on? Did somebody set the tent on fire? And these guys were like, yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened. Somebody came and set this tent to fire. That's what happened. And they were too embarrassed to tell these bitches that they had actually caused the fire. I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. But I'm very interested to follow how the police is going to handle the press regarding the investigation. Like, are they going to say anything about it from this on? Like, I'm going to make sure I get the paperwork when the investigation is done. Like, this is going to be so amusing. Well, thank you for listening and goodbye. And as usual, you can support the channel via PayPal at swanoft@gmail.com.